Yeah, okay. This tunnel, the star vein they called it, they pulled 10 ounces of gold per ton. I mean, that's just phenomenal. That's fabulously rich with gold. That meant that they were pulling what's called free-mill gold, which is big hunks of gold. And that's a big pocket where they took out a lot of ore. And the stuff towards the back is what the ore looks like right there. And they pulled a big pocket right out of the ceiling here, because your vein is running this direction. They went way up into the ceiling up in there. And again, you see traces of the vein at the top of the tunnel. The tunnel has gotten, that's because they were finding a lot of ore in there, pockets of ore. So we're going to keep going here.
Es de donde sacaban el oro. Entonces lo iban siguiendo, mira, de aquí lo iban siguiendo y entonces iban escarbando. Dicen que aquí dejaron de encontrar mucho. Ya no les... No, está guapo. Aquí está más grande el túnel porque aquí encontraban mucho oro. Entonces hacían más grande el túnel para sacar el oro. Y era toda la herramienta que usaban para sacar el oro. No. Sí, salían todos chamagosos y luego pues se bañaban. Y estas eran las lámparas que usaban. Es que los túneles en la tierra siempre son así, porque aquí no llega el sol. No, pero porque estaban trabajando.
Que trabajaban aquí se lavan.
El túnel lo hacían y luego lo protegían con madera para que no se cayeran. Mira, ve el techo.
¿Qué pasaría?
Cae en la cabeza. Porque sí, este es el de la barra porque ya no salía suficiente oro. Ya era muy poquito, mira, ven.
Yeah, so come on down. I'm going to walk up to the, yeah, back there's fine. Keep coming, just don't go too far, because I want everybody to circle around this area. Yeah, keep coming. Ben. Yeah, keep coming. Yeah, come on down. He's getting pictures. Okay, so this was a huge pocket of ore, and you can see the traces on the walls there. And that's all of the same kind of stuff that I showed you at the back of that one pocket. Gray, rusty brown, quartzy, chalky, black. That's where your gold's at. It was in one big pocket right here. And in the beginning, as I told you, they actually chiseled the tunnel out by hand. I've got to find a tool here. That's it. Okay. But eventually they went to these pneumatic drills. That means they run on compressed air. So I've started a hole right here. You can see from all my demonstrations. They would drill a hole 3 or 4 feet deep. They would clean it out and they would fill it with black powder. Of course, eventually they went to nitroglycerin, little vials of nitroglycerin and black powder. And then eventually gunpowder because Nobel dynamite, because Nobel invented it. And so I'll explain a little more of that later. But in the beginning, it was all by hand, and you had 3 guys on a mining team. So one guy would control the drill bit, and the other 2 would slam the end really hard with sledgehammers. And every time they hit it with a sledgehammer, he'd pull it back, put it back in again, and and turn it just a bit. Put it back in. They hit it, and they turn it again. It's called a star bit. If they didn't do that, the drill bit would get stuck in the rock. So you didn't want that to happen.
Would they ever miss, like hitting the?
I imagine so. You wanted to stay on good terms with your teammates, I think. Okay, one of the reasons I'm showing you this right here, I've got a bunch more tools up above on level 5. Again, we're on level 6. We're going up to level 5, and then we'll be exiting the mine from level 5 directly out. But there's a bunch more tools up there, but I didn't have an example of the drill bit and up there. So I wanted to make sure you understood how they drilled the holes. So that wall is the same material some of the same material that I was showing you before. It's dark brown, rusty material and a really black. And you can see how they were following the vein at the top of the ceiling there, kind of a trail of quartz, a little bit of quartz left behind, and also on the side. So that made a little zigzag and came down this tunnel. And they pulled a lot of ore out of this tunnel as well. But here's our 425-foot deep mine shaft. 5 more tunnels below. Again, that's another example of the basket they use to raise and lower the miners in. And that the big beam that runs up there, it wasn't in that position, but that's what they had back in the day, but that's what they attached the hoist cable to. Come on in. Yeah, keep coming. Yeah, so we're in the High Peak Mine. Remember the Eagle Mine I told you they cut the tunnel, I believe I told you that, perpendicular to the way the veins were running. Maybe I didn't tell you that. But they did that so that when they would hit the vein, they would mine the vein out. That's called a drift tunnel. But the High Peak Mine didn't do that. They just followed this huge vein of ore all the way from the edge of the mountain. See that?
How did you get up that high?
Yeah, with the scaffolding, just like you do with painting. Man, look at the back wall there. You see, so that's all that part of one of those huge quartz veins.
Dangerous?
Yeah, and of course, they use scaffolding. That's called stoping, or a stope. A stope. The word stope in German means step, but it has the idea of stepping up. So that's why they called it that. And the beam was in a different orientation that they had the hoist cable attached to. So it took them like 25 years to get all the way from the edge of the mountain down here and to mine upwards. And then they were ready to go downwards to get more ore. So by that time, this machine was available. It was built in 1869. I'm sorry, 1896. It got reversed. It's a 10 horsepower, 550 RPM multi-fuel engine. It's very high compression. It's actually a diesel engine. The compression is so high on it that it doesn't even have a glow plug to set off the mixture. It's because it doesn't need it. And of course, you all know how noisy diesel engines are. Can you imagine 10 horsepower and one explosion and almost no muffler? So it had to have been deafening in here, especially in a room like this. And then, of course, you know how dirty they are with the soot. Look at all the soot up here. So that was another reason why I believe they joined the two mines together so they could get a nice ventilation through. There are 5 more tunnels above us. The upper 4, some of them do stope way up into the mountain. So the ones that are closest to the surface of the mountain, they would drill down and make a ventilation hole into where they went way up.
People still mine in general?
Not really, because we're within walking distance of Main Street. So it's kind of hard to get a permit to mine here anymore because of the noise and potential pollution.
Like not here, like anywhere.
Oh yeah, sure. And yeah, there's a lot of people. We had a guy come through the tour a couple of months back. His family owns a really rich gold mine in Modesto.
Where's Modesto?
It's up towards Sacramento. It's about maybe.
So people still go down and mine?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Is it dangerous?
Well, of course. But hard rock mining is a lot safer, you know. So
Okay, and isn't there more machines now that do it?
sure, absolutely. Well, the guy that from Modesto said that his family were wanting to sell the mine because they were having MSHA, which is the equivalent of OSHA, come through about once a month and just fine them, you know, just terribly. Not that they couldn't afford it, but just it was pretty irksome, you know. So they wanted to leave. They wanted to sell their mine and buy a mine somewhere in a state that's more favorable to mining, like Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, and even Utah. All of which have a lot of ore in it. I actually pulled some metal out of some ore from Utah, in Provo, Utah.
What do we make? What do we make out of ore?
Well, they call it ore, I believe, because it comes from the word huge amount of energy. Enough to move a really big load for quite a ways before, you know, it started to use up all the energy. And that greatly multiplied the usefulness of this engine. And which was the same was with a lot of the steam engines. But even without this making all the noise that it would, I should wet from condensation. Okay, they use this bell system. Yeah. And so the line was accessible by all 5 of the tunnels down below. And California had this mining code. It's unique for miners. 7 bells and repeat was an accident or an emergency. And then they would also add the code of the tunnel they were in. 3 bells, 2 bells, 1 bell ready to blast. Another 3 bells, 2 bells, man on, meaning man on the basket, run slowly. Because you know that they really haul the ore up really fast, so they needed a reminder to be run slow. Meant to be lowered. And you can picture it. Divide 27 stories by 5 tunnels. And you got one guy, they've lowered the miners one at a time. And so this guy is way down below now where he's being lowered from. So he's got to yell up to his teammates up there, okay, I'm there. And they ring the bell for him. And then that signals the hoist guy to stop the machine. And so it takes a little while for it to coast to a stop. They controlled it by the 2 levers here. There's a brake and a clutch. So that's how they did that.
What was the average?
Go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
Toma una foto aquí mientras suben allá ellos, Andrés. Anda, Andrés. ¿Por qué no me contesta el viejito? Estaba padre ahí con el túnel aquí. Aquí no puedes subir, tienes que esperar a que suban la línea. Podemos ir a tomar la foto. ¿Estás enojado? Viejo, ahorita te voy a llevar a... ¿No bajaste paletas? Ahorita vamos a ver si hay alguna piedrita que tenga oro para que se venera. Pero ya tiene sus conductos. ¿Dónde? No, la mina ya no trabaja, ya no se paga. A ver, tienes que ir a agarrar con las 2 manos, viejo. Con las 2 manos, ¿verdad? Espérate a que suban eso. Ahora sí. Con las 2 manos, no te sueltes. Eso. No, pero sí te das un super golpe.
Just watch for his feet as he gets a good time.
Come on down.
No, I'm good.
Yeah, keep coming. This is where the upper 4 tunnels connect, and that's called an ore chute. The miners didn't go up and down this; they just shoved the ore down, and it backed up behind this wooden panel. And a miner would stand here and shovel the ore through the hole in the floor into an empty ore cart down on the rails there. So that's how they did that from way up in the from the upper 4. The entrance to the upper 4 tunnels is on the other side of the mountain and farther up. And then there's your example of a miner's hat with a carbide lamp. They didn't like to use the kerosene lamps because if they got broken or kicked over, it made a terrible fire.
How do we know that these won't break?
Well, they've been doing it since 1968, so I think they're stable. Okay, so here's some of the tools I was telling you about. I showed you how they drilled the 3 or 4 foot hole. Then they would put this down into the hole. It's kind of like a bicycle pump. And they would start pumping air in. As they slowly pull it out, that blew the debris out and cleaned out the hole so they could pack it with black powder. This is a charging spoon. So that made it easy for them to shovel the powder into the hole. And then about every foot worth of powder that they would put in the hole, they would tamp it down really good with this tamping tool. And then when they got towards the end, they needed to place the fuse. So the tamping tool has a deep groove down the side. You put the fuse in and you could keep tamping the powder around the fuse. Their original fuses were just hollowed out reeds filled with the black powder, which is gunpowder. And it would burn for like 5 minutes.
Those things run away and not blow up.
Yeah, right. Eventually, obviously, they went to commercial fuses when those are available. And then a lot of the mines made their own black powder. They also, in the beginning, started making nitroglycerin. And you might have seen that in some movies where they got a shack over by the mine and it blows up in the movie because they were cooking nitroglycerin in it. But the nitroglycerin wasn't all that sensitive. Once it's made, and I watched a YouTube video a couple months ago. They took a half an ounce of nitroglycerin in a glass vial, and they had a mechanism where they could drop it remotely from about 4 feet onto a metal plate. And they did that 3 or 4 times so it wouldn't explode. They had to hit it remotely with a sledgehammer really hard, and then it would blow up. So you had to have like a blasting cap. There's no actual material above these boards. That's just to keep a little bit of rubble from hitting us on the head from above 100 feet. Okay, so here's the jump hole. I'll go ahead and walk just a little bit past so everybody can kind of center around here. Yeah, come on down.
Yeah, I really do actually.
Yeah, come on down.
I think it's very...
For the sake of the taller people so they don't have to walk all this distance bent over for a long time. You can feel how we're walking downhill. Now come on down. Be careful, it's low right here.
Yeah.
And it's really low at the entrance. You've got low beams, lower beams, and really low beams.
Yeah, this is where I hit myself last time. Yeah, right around here.
Yeah, so these are the lowest beams right here.
Yep, that's my blood from last time. Whew. Yeah, that's a good workout.
Yeah. if you're gonna share that, cut out the parts that might be sensitive. Like the religion.
Oh, yeah, I didn't. Actually, I stopped it.
It's not sounded.
Oh, okay.
I was like so scared. I was like, I don't know where they went.
Okay, so notice how the rails run off the edge here. This is an ore chute, and this is called a turnstile. There used to be another rail that ran along here, So that's how they would manage the full and the empty carts after they would dump the carts down.